My best man stood up at my wedding and announced, "I can't let you marry her after what I found in her basement." The reception hall went silent, 200 guests staring at Marcus as he stood there in his rented tux, holding a manila folder with shaking hands. My bride, Emma, turned white as a sheet beside me, her bouquet dropping to the altar. I'd known Marcus since we were 12. He'd never been dramatic, never caused scenes. He was the guy who helped me pick out the engagement ring, organized my bachelor party, been nothing but supportive of Emma since I introduced them 3 years ago. But for the past 2 weeks, he'd been acting strange, asking weird questions about Emma's house, about how long she'd lived there, about her family history. I thought it was wedding stress, maybe nerves about his best man speech. Last Tuesday, he showed up at my apartment looking like he hadn't slept, said he needed to borrow my truck to move furniture for his sister. When I offered to help, he insisted he could handle it alone. He returned it 6 hours later with mud on the tires and scratches on the tailgate. Thursday, he asked if I'd ever been in Emma's basement. I told him no, that she kept it locked and said it was just storage from her grandmother's estate. Old furniture, photo albums, boring family stuff. He nodded but looked troubled, like my answer confirmed something he didn't want to hear. Friday night at the rehearsal dinner, Marcus barely spoke. He picked at his salmon and kept staring at Emma with this expression I couldn't read. When she excused herself to the bathroom, he leaned over and asked if I really knew everything about her past. I laughed it off, said of course I did. We'd been together 3 years. But Marcus shook his head and said, "Sometimes people hide things, even from the people they love most." Emma returned before I could ask what he meant. The morning of the wedding, Marcus pulled me aside while I was adjusting my tie. He looked like he'd been crying, which freaked me out because I'd never seen him emotional about anything. He kept saying he was sorry, that he never should have gone looking, that some secrets should stay buried. I asked what he was talking about, but the photographer interrupted for family pictures, and Marcus went silent. During the ceremony, I noticed him fidgeting with something in his jacket pocket, checking his phone, glancing at the exit like he wanted to run. When the minister asked if anyone objected to the marriage, I held my breath, but Marcus stayed quiet. I thought whatever was bothering him had passed. Then came the reception, dinner, the toasts, and Marcus standing up with that folder. He opened it slowly, his voice shaking as he spoke to the entire room. 3 days ago, I went to Emma's house while you were both at work. I picked the basement lock because I was worried, because of some things I'd heard from people at her job. Emma grabbed my arm, her nails digging in. "Marcus, please don't," she whispered, but he continued. "What I found down there isn't storage from her grandmother." He pulled out photographs, his hands trembling. "It's evidence of what Emma's been doing for the past 5 years and why she can never be trusted." That's when I saw what was in those pictures, and everything I thought I knew about the woman I'd just married shattered completely. The photos slipped from Marcus's trembling hands, scattering across the reception hall floor like fallen leaves. I dropped to one knee, grabbing the nearest one, and feel my stomach twist into a knot. It's Emma, my Emma, standing in front of a community center bulletin board plastered with missing persons flyers. She's not just looking at them. She's arranging them, her face set in intense concentration as she pins a newspaper clipping beside a woman's photo. The date stamp in the corner shows this was taken just 4 months ago. "What is this?" I whisper, but my voice carries in the silent hall. Marcus kneels beside me, gathering the other photos with shaking hands. "She's obsessed with these cases," he says, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Cold cases, unsolved murders, women who vanished without a trace. I found a whole wall of this in her basement." Emma lunges forward suddenly, nearly tripping on her wedding dress as she scrambles toward us. "Give those to me!" she screams, her face contorted with rage and fear. "Those are my research. You had no right to go through my things." Her fingers claw at the photos, ripping one as she tries to snatch it from my hand. I pull back instinctively, staring at her like I'm seeing a stranger wearing my wife's face. "Research," I repeat, the word feeling foreign on my tongue. "Emma, what is this?" "It's not what it looks like," she says, her voice dropping to a desperate whisper. "Please, just let me explain. Not here, not like this." But Marcus is already pulling more photos from the folder. "She has files on each of them," he says, his voice cracking. "Detailed timelines, their daily routines, where they worked, what routes they took home." One of Emma's bridesmaids gasps and backs away. Other guests are already standing, murmuring to each other, some heading for the exits. The beautiful wedding we spent months planning is disintegrating around us, but I can't look away from the photos. "Everyone, please," Emma says, turning to address the room, her voice unnaturally high. "This is all a misunderstanding. I'm working on something important. I'm trying to help these women." My mother grabs her purse and my father's arm, shooting me a look of confused concern before they hurry toward the door. Emma's parents stand frozen near the cake table, her mother's hand pressed against her mouth in horror. "Help them how, Emma?" I ask, my voice steadier than I feel. "These women are missing, some of them for years." "That's why I'm investigating," she shouts, desperation making her voice crack. "The police gave up. They stopped looking. Someone has to care about what happened to them." More guests are leaving now, the murmurs growing louder. Emma's cousin ushers her children toward the exit, casting fearful glances over her shoulder. The DJ has unplugged his equipment, clearly eager to distance himself from whatever this is becoming. "I need to see it," I say suddenly, standing up. "The basement. I need to see what's down there." Emma grabs my arm, her nails digging into my skin through my suit jacket. "Don't," she pleads. "Not today. We can talk about this tomorrow. We can still salvage our wedding." But I'm already moving toward the exit, Marcus following close behind. Emma trails after us, still in her wedding dress, calling my name as we reach the parking lot. "I'll drive," Marcus says, fishing his keys from his pocket. The ride to Emma's house, our house, where I was supposed to move in next week, passes in tense silence. Emma arrives minutes after us, having gotten a ride from her maid of honor, who looks terrified to be involved. Please, Emma says as we stand on the porch, let me explain before you go down there. But I'm already moving past her, heading for the basement door in the kitchen. The lock is broken from when Marcus picked it days ago. I flip the light switch and descend the stairs, each step taking me further from the life I thought I knew. The basement is nothing like Emma described. There's no grandmother's furniture, no dusty photo albums. Instead, the walls are covered with maps, timelines, and photographs. 5 women's faces stare back at me from the center of the largest wall, all missing, all between the ages of 25 and 35, all with dark hair like Emma's. Red string connects their photos to locations, to newspaper clippings, to handwritten notes in Emma's neat script. Boxes labeled with each woman's name line the floor, filled with folders and notebooks. Jesus Christ, I whisper, taking it all in. Emma stands at the bottom of the stairs, her wedding dress gathering dust on the concrete floor. I can explain, she says quietly. Then start talking, I tell her, turning to face the woman I thought I knew, because right now, it looks like I just married someone I've never actually met. Marcus moves to the far wall, pointing to a map with red pins marking locations across 3 counties. These are where the women were last seen, he says, and these, he points to blue pins, are where Emma thinks their bodies might be buried. Emma flinches at the word bodies, her eyes darting to a notebook on the table. I pick it up, opening to a page filled with her handwriting. Melissa Cardin, 32, I read aloud, disappeared the 15th of May 2018, last seen leaving work at Riverside Hospital. Husband claims she texted about working late, but cell records show her phone was already in Westlake Park by then. Police found nothing. They're looking in the wrong places. I look up at Emma, this stranger in a wedding dress. What have you been doing? I can explain, Emma repeats, her wedding dress now smudged with basement dust. This isn't what it looks like. Then what is it? I demand, gesturing at the wall covered with missing women's faces, because it looks like you've been stalking these women. Emma takes a shaky breath. I'm solving cases the police abandoned years ago. These women deserve justice. Their families deserve answers. Marcus steps forward, his face grim. Show him the journals, Emma. No, she whispers, lunging toward a desk in the corner. But Marcus is faster. He grabs a leather-bound notebook and hands it to me. Page 37, he says quietly. I flip through pages filled with Emma's neat handwriting until I reach it. There's a photo of a woman with dark hair, Melissa Cardin, according to the caption, walking into her apartment building. The timestamp shows it was taken at 9:17 p.m. The note beside it reads, subject maintains predictable schedule, returns home between 9:10 to 9:25 p.m. on weeknights, lives alone since divorce, no security cameras in back entrance. My stomach turns. Emma, you took this picture? You followed this woman? I was documenting her routine, Emma says defensively. I needed to understand her patterns to figure out who might have targeted her, but this photo is dated 3 weeks before she disappeared. I say, my voice hollow as realization dawns. You were watching her before she went missing. Emma's eyes dart to Marcus. How did you find all this? How long have you been snooping around my house? People at your job talk, Emma, Marcus says. Your coworker Diane mentioned how you'd been researching missing persons cases for years, said you had files on your work computer about women who disappeared. I didn't think much of it until I overheard you on the phone last month talking about getting close to solving the Westlake case. That's why you borrowed my truck, I say, the pieces falling into place. You came here while we were at work. Marcus nods. I had to see for myself. I picked the lock and, he gestures around the basement, found all this. I turn another page in the journal and feel the blood drain from my face. Emma's written detailed theories about how each woman died: strangulation, blunt force trauma, suffocation, complete with crude sketches of body positions. Jesus Christ, Emma, I whisper. This is... The sound of car doors slamming outside interrupts me. Emma freezes, her eyes widening with panic. That'll be the police, Marcus says quietly. You called the police? Emma shrieks, turning on him. Before your speech? You planned this whole thing? Marcus doesn't flinch. I found hair samples in labeled bags, Emma, and personal items that had to come from their homes. A hairbrush, a necklace, a diary. What was I supposed to do? Those are for DNA comparison, Emma insists, her voice rising hysterically. I'm building evidence files. Heavy footsteps sound on the porch, followed by a sharp knock. Police, open up! I move toward the stairs in a daze, but Emma grabs my arm. Please, she begs. Don't let them in. I can explain everything. I think you should explain it to them, I say, gently removing her hand. 2 officers enter the kitchen as I reach the top of the stairs. One is in uniform. The other, a woman in a blazer with a detective's badge, looks past me to where Emma stands at the bottom of the basement stairs, still in her wedding dress. Emma Carlisle? The detective asks. Emma nods, her face pale. I'm Detective Rivera. We received information about potential evidence related to several missing persons cases. She glances at the wall of photos visible from the stairs. Mind if we take a look around your basement? You need a warrant, Emma says automatically. We have one, Detective Rivera replies, producing a document from her jacket, signed by Judge Morales, an hour ago. More officers file in as Emma slumps against the wall. The detective turns to me. And you are? I'm her. I hesitate, the word sticking in my throat. Her husband, as of about 3 hours ago. The detective's expression softens slightly. I'm sorry about the timing. Would you mind showing us what you found down here? I lead them into the basement, pointing out the wall of photos, the boxes of files, the map with colored pins. The detective examines everything with clinical detachment while 2 officers begin photographing the evidence. Miss Carlyle, Detective Rivera says, turning to Emma, can you explain why you have Melissa Cardin's hairbrush? It was reported missing from her apartment after her disappearance. I found it in Westlake Park, Emma says quickly, where her phone last pinged. The police never searched the right areas. No. The detective raises an eyebrow. And this? She holds up a small plastic bag containing what looks like a gold locket. That belonged to Vanessa Mercer, Emma says. I found it near the abandoned factory, where I think she was taken. Interesting, Detective Rivera says, because according to her mother, this necklace was in Vanessa's jewelry box the day she disappeared. Her apartment was locked, no signs of forced entry. Emma's face crumples. I was trying to help, she whispers. No one was looking for them anymore. An officer calls from the corner of the basement. Detective, you need to see this. The officer is kneeling by a section of the concrete floor, pointing to dark stains in the cracks. Detective Rivera crouches beside him, examining the stains before looking back at Emma. Is that blood, Miss Carlyle? Emma's eyes widen. No, I mean it might be. I cut myself working down here once. Or maybe it was already there when I moved in. The detective stands, her expression hardening. We're going to need forensics in here. And Miss Carlyle, I think you should come with us to answer some questions. As they lead Emma upstairs, she looks back at me, her eyes pleading. I didn't hurt anyone, she insists. I was trying to solve these cases. I was doing what the police wouldn't do. I stand in the basement surrounded by the evidence of a stranger's obsession, unable to reconcile this with the woman I thought I knew, the woman I married just hours ago. Marcus puts his hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, he says quietly. I couldn't let you marry her without knowing the truth. I nod numbly, staring at the wall of missing women's faces. 5 women who disappeared without a trace. 5 women Emma had been tracking, following, documenting. 5 women who still haven't been found. Detective Rivera stands in the basement, her face unreadable as she studies Emma, who looks absurdly out of place in her wedding dress among the evidence of her obsession. The detective's voice is calm but carries an unmistakable edge. Miss Carlyle, I need you to explain why you were stalking these women before they disappeared. Emma flinches at the word stalking like it physically hurts her. I wasn't stalking them, I was documenting patterns. There's a difference. A difference that might not matter to a judge, Detective Rivera says, leafing through one of Emma's notebooks. You followed Melissa Cardin for 3 weeks before she vanished. You photographed her entering her apartment building, tracked her work schedule, noted which entrance had no security cameras. Because I was trying to understand who might have targeted her. Emma's voice rises with desperation. Don't you see? These women had routines, habits that made them vulnerable. I was identifying those vulnerabilities to figure out how the perpetrator chose them. I stand frozen, unable to process how the woman I married hours ago could be explaining away what looks increasingly like criminal behavior. The wedding ring on my finger feels foreign, like it belongs to someone else. And the personal belongings? Detective Rivera asks, holding up the evidence bag containing Vanessa Mercer's locket. You claimed you found this at an abandoned factory, but her mother confirms it was in her apartment the day she disappeared. Emma's shoulders slump. I needed physical evidence to test my theories. So you broke into her apartment? The detective presses. The door was unlocked, Emma whispers, then seems to realize her mistake. I didn't. Miss Carlyle, Detective Rivera interrupts. I think it would be best if we continue this conversation at the station. An officer approaches with a plastic evidence bag containing what looks like a small cloth stained with something dark. Detective, we found this behind the water heater. The detective examines it, then looks back at Emma. Is this blood? It's not what you think, Emma says quickly. I cut myself working down here once. I was using tools to build the evidence boards. We'll have the lab confirm that, Detective Rivera says. She nods to the officer, who places the cloth in a larger evidence collection box. Another officer calls from across the basement. Detective, you need to see this. We all move toward the back corner where the officer is shining a flashlight on a section of concrete floor. The beam illuminates dark stains in the cracks between the slabs. More blood? I ask, my voice hollow. Looks that way, the detective says, crouching to examine it. She turns to Emma. Care to explain this too? That was here when I moved in, Emma says, but her voice wavers. This house is over 60 years old. Who knows what happened down here before I bought it? Detective Rivera stands, brushing dust from her knees. We'll need to bring in the forensics team to take samples. Officer Chen, please escort Miss Carlyle upstairs while we secure the scene. As the officer leads Emma toward the stairs, she turns to me, her eyes pleading. Please believe me. I didn't hurt anyone. I was trying to help these women. I can't find any words to respond. The woman I thought I knew, the woman who laughed at my terrible jokes, who brought me soup when I had the flu, who cried during sad movies, seems like a stranger now. Once Emma is upstairs, I turn to Marcus. Did you know it was this bad? He shakes his head. I knew she was obsessed with these cases. But the blood, I didn't expect that. Detective Rivera approaches us. I understand today was supposed to be your wedding day, she says, her voice softening slightly. I'm sorry you're finding out about this like this. What happens now? I ask. We'll take Miss Carlyle to the station for formal questioning. The forensics team will process this scene, and we'll need statements from both of you. She pauses. If you know anything else about Miss Nextard, Carlyle's activities or movements around the times these women disappeared, that would be helpful information. I don't, I say honestly. I had no idea about any of this. After the detective moves away to coordinate with her team, I make my way upstairs. Emma is sitting at the kitchen table, still in her wedding dress, with an officer standing nearby. When she sees me, she straightens up. "Can I talk to my husband alone?" she asks the officer. He looks uncomfortable. "Just for a minute. Stay where I can see you." The officer steps back toward the doorway, and I sit across from Emma at the table where we'd shared countless meals, planned our wedding, talked about our future. "Why?" I ask simply. "Why all of this?" "I needed to understand their patterns," Emma says, leaning forward, her voice urgent. "These women were all targeted for a reason. The police weren't connecting the dots. But following them, breaking into their homes, taking their personal belongings?" I shake my head. "That's not research, Emma. That's criminal behavior. You don't understand." She insists. "These women were in danger long before they disappeared. I could see the signs, the way they moved through the world, the vulnerabilities in their routines. I was documenting it all to prove there's a pattern." "And the blood?" I ask, my voice barely above a whisper. Emma's eyes dart away for a split second. "I told you, I cut myself." "On all those different parts of the floor?" I press. "Emma, they're going to test it. They'll know if it's your blood or not." She doesn't answer, just stares at her hands folded on the table. Her wedding ring catches the light, and I feel a surge of grief for the future we'll never have now. "Time's up," the officer says, stepping forward. "Detective Rivera is ready to transport Miss Carlyle to the station." As Emma stands, I notice a smudge of something dark on the hem of her wedding dress. She follows my gaze and quickly tries to cover it with her hand. "Emma," I say, my voice breaking. "What have you done?" "Nothing," she whispers, but her eyes are wide with fear. "I swear, I was just trying to help. I needed to understand their patterns, to figure out who was targeting them." "Miss Carlyle, we need to go now," the officer says firmly. As they lead her toward the front door, Emma looks back at me one last time. "I love you," she says. "Please don't give up on me." I watch as they help her into the police car, her wedding dress bunched around her like a deflated parachute. Detective Rivera approaches me on the porch. "We'll need you to come to the station later to give a formal statement," she says. "In the meantime, is there somewhere you can stay tonight? You shouldn't be alone after something like this." I nod numbly. "I'll call my parents." As the police cars pull away, Marcus steps out onto the porch beside me. "I'm sorry," he says quietly. "I know you loved her." "I did," I reply, watching the taillights disappear down the street, "but I don't think I ever really knew her at all." I sit across from Emma in the county jail's visitation room, the gray metal table between us feeling like an ocean. She's wearing a standard-issue orange jumpsuit that somehow makes her look both smaller and harder than the woman I married 3 days ago. Her makeup is gone, dark circles under her eyes revealing the toll of what's happened. The wedding ring I placed on her finger is conspicuously absent. Obstruction of justice, evidence tampering, breaking and entering, theft of personal property? I say, reading from the list of charges Detective Rivera gave me this morning. They're still deciding whether to add stalking charges. Emma's eyes meet mine, defiant despite everything. "I didn't do anything wrong, not really. The blood in your basement wasn't yours, Emma. The lab confirmed it matches Melissa Cardin's DNA. She flinches slightly but recovers quickly. "I can explain that. That's why I'm here. I need the truth. All of it." Emma leans forward, lowering her voice. "I didn't kill anyone. I didn't hurt those women. I was protecting them." "Protecting them?" I repeat, disbelief coloring my voice. 5 women are missing, presumed dead, and you had their blood in your basement." "They're not dead," Emma whispers fiercely. "They're safe." The words hang between us as I try to process what she's saying. A guard shifts position near the door, reminding us we're not alone. "Marcus called me this morning." I tell her, watching her reaction carefully. "He found something else. Security footage of you at the Westlake Park coffee shop the day Vanessa Mercer disappeared, and at the hospital parking garage when Melissa Cardin was last seen." Emma's face pales. "He's been digging for weeks, hasn't he? Ever since he overheard me on that phone call. He was trying to protect me. He was interfering in something he doesn't understand." Emma hisses, then composes herself. "I was at those places. Yes, but not to hurt anyone." "Then why?" I demand, leaning closer. "Why were you following these women? Why did you have their personal belongings? Why was Melissa Cardin's blood on your basement floor?" Emma glances at the guard, then back to me. "Melissa cut herself when I was helping her. We were in a hurry. She was terrified. Sense of God." "Helping her do what, Emma?" She takes a deep breath. "Disappear." The word sits between us like a living thing. I remember the wall in Emma's basement, the 5 women's faces connected with red string, the detailed notes about their routines, their vulnerabilities. "These women were all in danger," Emma continues, her voice barely audible. "Melissa's ex-husband had threatened to kill her if she ever left the state with their son. Vanessa's boyfriend had put her in the hospital twice. The police couldn't help them. Restraining orders, reports. None of it was working. They needed to vanish completely. So you, what? Helped them fake their own disappearances?" The absurdity of it strikes me, but something in Emma's expression makes me pause. "I created a network," she says. "Safe houses, new identities, support systems. These women needed to escape, and I found a way to make it happen." "That's vigilante justice, Emma. It's still illegal." "It's survival," she counters. "The system failed them. I didn't." A memory surfaces. Emma disappearing for a weekend 6 months ago, claiming she was visiting a college friend. She'd returned exhausted. With mud on her boots and a scratch on her arm she'd blamed on a rosebush. "The truck," I say suddenly. "When Marcus borrowed it, he found something, didn't he?" Emma's eyes darken. "The address of one of the safe houses. It was in my journal. That's why he was asking about my basement, why he was so troubled at the rehearsal dinner. He'd already found enough to suspect something." And you've been doing this for 5 years? Since before we met? She nods slowly. My cousin was killed by her husband after 3 domestic violence reports. The police did nothing until it was too late. I promised myself I would never let that happen to another woman if I could help it. The guard announces we have 5 minutes left. Emma reaches across the table, her fingers stopping just short of mine. I know what this looks like, she says. The evidence, the blood, the stalking, but I was documenting their routines to help them break them. I took their personal items to plant false evidence. The blood in the basement was from when Melissa cut herself while we were staging her disappearance. Why didn't you tell me? I ask, the hurt in my voice unmistakable. 3 years together, and you kept this secret the whole time. I couldn't risk it, Emma says simply. The fewer people who knew, the safer these women were. Their abusers are still looking for them. Some have connections to law enforcement. The whole system had to believe these women had vanished or been killed. And now, I gesture around us at the jail. What happens to them now that you're in here? There are others, Emma says. The network doesn't depend on just me anymore. The guard approaches, signaling our time is up. As I stand, Emma grabs my wrist, her grip surprisingly strong. The evidence they found will make it look like I'm guilty of terrible things, she says urgently. But I need you to understand what I was really doing. These women are alive because of me. As the guard leads her away, I remain seated, trying to reconcile the woman I thought I married with this stranger, who ran an underground railroad for endangered women. Part of me wants to believe her explanation, while another part wonders if this is just another lie. Outside the jail, Marcus is waiting by his car. His expression is grim. Did she feed you some story about saving these women? He asks as I approach. How did you know? Detective Rivera told me Emma's claiming she runs some kind of vigilante protection network. Marcus shakes his head. They found more evidence this morning. Hair samples in her basement match 3 of the missing women, and they found a journal with detailed descriptions of how she thought they died. She says she was helping them escape abusive situations. I say, not sure why I'm even entertaining the possibility. And the blood? The personal items she stole? The stalking before they disappeared? Marcus counters. Come on, man, you know what this is. But I'm not sure I do anymore. The Emma I knew for 3 years was kind, passionate about justice, fiercely protective of her friends. Could that woman have been running a secret network to help endangered women disappear? Or was she something darker, something I never saw beneath the surface? My phone buzzes with a text from Detective Rivera. Need to see you at station. New evidence found. Brings clarity. I have to go, I tell Marcus. The detective has something. I'll drive you, he offers. But I shake my head. I need some time to think. As I walk toward my car, I realize that whatever Detective Rivera has found will determine which version of Emma I believe, the vigilante savior or something far more sinister. Either way, the woman I thought I married never really existed at all.